Yesterday, I was invited to sit in on an AMG strategy meeting where AMG dropped some huge news on not just engines, but models, model lines, and things that we have been speculating for years now, finally confirmed. And today, I'm going to fill you in on all the news for 2026 and everything going forward on today's episode of RBR Inside Track. So guys, I'm Raz, aka Mr AMG, and welcome back to RBR. And the 60 years of AMG are fast approaching next year, and in the lead up to those celebrations, AMG seem to be planning their most ambitious model rollout in modern history. Yesterday, they updated myself and a few other members of the press on what they're planning for 2026 and beyond. The meeting was chaired by the current CEO of AMG, Michael Scheiber. He has been the CEO since 2023. And in fact, it's during his tenure that this entire U-turn, if you like, from the EV-centric plan back to V8s happened. Now, Michael will be around until the 1st of July, when he will then be replaced by Stefan Wackbach, who is best known for his extremely successful rollout of the Taycan when working for VAR Group. So we will see what he brings to the table. But for today, this was a short meeting, but from our perspective, an explosive one, because they talked about not just things like the new V8, they talked about an updated 6-cylinder, we talked about new models, and even things like the Black Series, which they finally confirmed the fate of. Now guys, our first point is going to be the big engine reset. And I want to preface all of this by telling you what Michael was saying of why they changed the strategy in the last few years. And it should be obvious to you, the reason was customer feedback. It was talking to customers like you and me, seeing what we liked and what we just did not agree with, and then steering, or perhaps us drifting the company back into the line where it should be going. And how can we talk about things we didn't like without talking about the 4-cylinder engine? Of course, most famously used in the C63, which we will never accept as a C63. Michael confirmed that that engine, the M139, won't be Euro 7 compliant. For many reasons, we know that small displacement, large horsepower engines weren't going to work in Euro 7 anyway. So that is one reason that it will no longer be in any new AMG car. And secondly, it's due to customer feedback, because you and I basically hated its guts. So that engine is gone forever. So in that sense, guys, we won. But what replaces that engine? Well, it's a great engine that's going to replace it. It is a new and updated 6-cylinder engine, an inline-six, like we've known in the past, the M256M, but now an evolution version of this engine that AMG says is going to be even more characterful, again, based on customer feedback. And one of the first cars that will come in, confirmed by Michael, is the C53. As I predicted with you guys a year ago on Inside Track, the C53 will be a mild hybrid, pure combustion car using that inline 6-cylinder, a whole new exhaust system, and it should sound and be a lot more exciting than anything we've had in this generation in C-Class. I don't think the C-Class is going to get a V8. We'll talk about which car will in this similar midsize in a little bit. I do think, however, that AMG will give the car the widened front-end body and the exciting design that that 4-cylinder C63 had. Because let's be fair, the design was nice, but the engine was not appropriate. So I think the 53 will maintain that in the facelift C-Class, and then we will have a more exciting car. Another car that will have this is the GLC 53, also confirmed. That is a car that I've actually filmed. So I'm not going to talk too much about that, but you can see the entry level into AMG in terms of combustion is now where it should be. It's not a 4-cylinder, it is an appropriate inline-six that apparently is going to be even more characterful than it was before. So that's a good start, and we can see AMG not just focusing on V8 only plus EV, we're also looking at bolstering the entry level. But speaking of the entry level, what does that mean for those of us trying to enter AMG like we used to with the A35s and the A45s? Well, he did confirm that a CLA AMG is coming. He didn't say what the drivetrain is. We know what it is because Ola Kulinaeus already confirmed that the CLA AMG will be an EV. So what Michael did say is it is an awesome emotional car. What I read into that is that it's probably going to have those engine type sounds like we saw in the GT EV that I had a co-drive in. That's my assumption. Maybe they'll have some other tricks up their sleeve, I don't know. And he also confirmed that other than the CLA AMG, there will be other entry-level points to AMG that will be coming, which I read as perhaps other body styles like GLB, GLA, etc. But who knows? They might have some ICE plans. They have not said anything yet. If they have their entire reliance on EV as entry level, I do worry about that, but only time will tell if they're going to be successful in that regard. Now it's time to drop the hammer. We're going to talk about the V8. Yes, Michael confirmed, of course, what Ola Colonès already told us, that the flat plane V8 is in development at the moment. And as I predicted in the S-Class video, it is indeed based on that M177 Evo that we saw at the S-Class launch, which is great because that's a Euro 7 engine, which means it's going to last for years and years. Then Michael confirmed that they've identified a sweet spot in the mid-size range where they're going to be introducing that engine to a few models. And that to me is all but confirming the CLE 63 that we are so eagerly anticipating, maybe even the E63, which again is a perfect part of that mid-range segment. That's just me assuming it, but certainly CLE. Now within this forum, I was also able to ask some questions. And my first question was, will this flat plane engine exist alongside the cross plane one? And the answer was that it will initially. They will both coexist together in a few different models, but because the flat plane is Euro 7 compliant, it will continue on further. Now, before I could ask my next question, which was about sound, Michael beat me to it. And he said that they are working hard on sound. They know that the reason that we love the 8 cylinders isn't just the fact that it's 8 cylinders, but it's the sound and the emotion that goes along with it. He's seen the comments about the flat plane and what people are thinking it's going to sound like. And his words were, we know about it and we have it handled. And I love the confidence that he had behind that. And like I've said to a lot of commenters, we all thought the bi-turbos were going to sound horrible back when the naturally aspirated cars were going to go. We were wrong. I want to give AMG the benefit of the doubt here and see what they can achieve with the flat plane. You know, a long time has passed since the GT Black was done and they've learned a lot. Let's see what they can manage now with that engine. My next question was about the plug-in hybrids. Firstly, to do with the higher end ones, the 63E performance versions with the P3 system. And Michael said they're going to look at it on a case-by-case basis because due to customer feedback, some customers said that they didn't like the weight of the car, some thought the utility wasn't that high. So rather than just saying a yes or a no to that question, they will look at it at a case-by-case basis, which I find quite interesting because when I was reviewing the S-Class and we talked about the AMG, I wasn't sure whether they were going to go P3, P2, or just have a mild V8 version. And it seems that everything could be a possibility at the moment, which is interesting. Now, when it comes to the mid-size, he was much more enthusiastic, citing the success of both the GLE 53 and the E53 in the plugins, in sales and how much customers love them. So the future of those, very secure. But yes, great to know that the V8 will be rolling out across multiple cars in the very, very near future. Now moving on to the electric cars, and we know the AMG EA platform is being worked on. I had that co-drive in the GT 4-door EV that I found to be super exciting with the V8 mode. And Michael confirmed yesterday that alongside that and the SUV that we also know is in development, there will be an SUV coupe, so 3 body styles altogether. He also said that he doesn't think that customers are really interested in a 2-door like a GT or a SL in AMG EA at the moment. So they'll be focusing, keeping those cars as ICE, which I think is the right decision. He also mentioned that the car that I sat in was a pre-production car of the GT EV. And he said things have moved along since then and the car is even more exciting than it was then. So I can't wait to drive that. I think that's going to be sometime mid of this year. And I'm super, super excited to see what they do with that car. Now perhaps the cherry on top, and that was AMG's recommitment to hardcore cars, starting with the teaser that they gave us last week of the new Mythos car based on the CLE, which seems to be a homage to Black Series, but even more extreme. This is going to be a limited run car, probably 30 units, I'm guessing over €500,000 easily, but acting as a halo car again for the brand, saying we are all about hardcore cars, V8 cars, wide body brutes, and it's great to see them doing that. But what about a production version that more people can actually buy? And what about Black Series? Well, I want to quote to you, because he was asked the question directly about Black Series, and this is what Michael had to say. He said, Black Series is definitely alive in the future. It's an obligation. It needs to be radical and convince on performance. And I swear to God, I almost jumped off my seat with joy. I had to contain myself. But just to know that Black Series hasn't gone anywhere, which a lot of us thought it might be cancelled going into this EV future, is just so great to hear from his mouth. Now, we know that they have already begun testing something called the GT Track Sport concept. And it's a very radical looking GT with a more modern design, but just as brutal looking as the GT Black Series was. And I think this will then lead into the GT Black Series of the future. So Black Series lives, and this guy here will have one. As you guys, I can't wait. I was so excited when they said that. But what a cherry on top of this great reset, where AMG seemed to finally be putting emotions before emissions. Wow, that's a great line. I'm impressed with myself on that one. But yes, emotions before emissions. We've got the mid-size segment that was so lacking now being bolstered by the V8s. They said that they're going to double down on SUVs, which is more than 50% of their sales, but using ICE engines as well, which is great. The other thing that he said that they're really going to focus on is differentiating AMG design from standard Mercedes. And he said, look for the mythos to see what he means by that, which means we're going to see even more aggressive design on our standard cars versus the normal Mercedes-Benz cars. And that design is going to be handled by the person who's taking over from Gordon Wagner now, who's actually ex-AMG design now, which is Bastian Baudy. I'm really excited to see what he is going to bring to the table. Apparently the track sport is his baby, so we'll get a good idea of what he can do. But yeah, this has been something of healing, I think, for the soul, for me, and I'm sure for you guys as well. But I think the majority of credit goes to you guys. 90% of it must be due to customer feedback, so pat yourselves on the back. We've got an amazing few years now, going into 60 years of AMG, and in fact, this healing begins very soon. Like I said, I've filmed the GLC 53 already. That video comes out this Tuesday, and you're going to come into that video pessimistic, but you're going to leave with a big smile on your face. So subscribe to RBR, put your notifications on this Tuesday. If you've enjoyed this episode of Inside Track on RBR, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.